chatter about that.
Recording is on.
Welcome to the weekly DXdao call, where we discuss the recent happenings in the DAO, focusing first on product updates and then general community stuff. Happy New Year. And yeah, as we typically do, we'll kick off with a product update on Omen.
Yes, we released two ENS domains for testing specific new features. On DXtest, we released the first alpha version of scalar markets, so everyone can test them, dxtest.eth. And on DXomen, we are actually testing the DXdao deployment. This will, we merged actually DXdao deployment into the master branch of Omen, and it should be all going back to dxtest.eth at some point in the coming days. So it looks like those two test domains were confusing, and this is something we probably should not do in the future anymore. So yes, we also are in the process of actually getting scalar markets ready for like all networks we are on, Socal, Mainnet, and DXdao.
Awesome, great. Any other questions or thoughts on Omen?
Well, I guess the presidential election market resolved this past week, and so there was not a long process, but the arbitration process kind of went through the steps, and Clara's jurors kind of voted, and so that's again, I think it's a kind of a culmination of a very long. I think that market was started in June. There was about 1.5 million DAI traded on that. I can't remember the ETH volume, but I think that's a good accomplishment for Omen.
Definitely, and a good precedent, I would say, for the product that it didn't resolve to invalid, because I know that was a fear that, if it were to resolve invalid, that when it was a verified market, that could have been kind of a negative thing for the platform and for the user experience. So good to see that the system seems to work. All right, great. Should we move on to Mesa and Martin, who's recently joined as product manager? Maybe you could give us the update on Mesa.
Yes. So Geronimo made like a draft for front end, and we had today some discussions, and we also were discussing about how to do the charting of the fair sale auction mechanism, and I think we will find a good solution for this. And then tomorrow we will have another call with Alex, who's working on fair sale mechanism from Gnosis side, and I think we will discuss how we work further together. And then I asked invited Jen to it. Maybe he can make it too. And we now have an established weekly call, which is on Tuesday around UTC -1, I think. No, yeah, but it's not like an open. It's just more like a product call. And then today I've had a short chat with Keenan, and I think we will sit together, or we have an appointment next week. We will discuss about how to do the rebranding from Mesa Dex to Mesa for an IDEO platform, and it's just about to see how we can make this transition in a planned way. Because we have to discuss this also with you and the community, how we do it. Then yesterday Adam has been in the call. I don't know. I think I thought about it, and I think maybe a first task for him could be try to do this charting stuff, because it's it's something we need anyway, and we can start building right now in a way. I don't know, he's not now here, but I think he may be on the call on Monday and make a short introduction. So yeah, that's from my side.
Yeah, that's great, and it's great to see things coming together. I think for the longest time, on Mesa, we've simply used the open source DEX interface that had been published by Gnosis without really doing our own developments as DXdao, and so it's great to see this team coming together and pushing this vision forward around like a new IDEO platform.
And yes, yeah, that's all, I think. Yeah.
And if anyone is like, all the discussions are happening on hashtag Mesa strategy. So just join the Keybase channel and see, like, we're discussing the wireframes right now and in general how it should look like. So if you guys want to give feedback or just check it out, feel free to join.
Yeah.
Great. Any other thoughts on Mesa or questions there?
Wireframes look great, and just excited for the progress and what's to come.
Yeah, it's important because then you can really discuss on the yeah, it shows that, yeah, it showed me some things, because in a way if the sale algorithm is very, very easy and straightforward, then it's also easy to make an interface. But if you start like to add different stuff to make it more sophisticated, then also the front has to be more sophisticated, and in a way for users it's much more complicated to understand what's going on. And I think one goal is to make it the most simple interface you can like make, but it's like a trade-off between complicated interface and a working sale mechanism to make, yeah, that's just, it's a kind of trade-off, but we find out some solution. And what we find out, that's I think it's quite interesting, the input from Sky doing like use the fair sale mechanism as a like kind of OTC trade. In a way, it's funny because Mesa DEX was like the idea to be a DEX, an on-chain DEX, and it didn't find like product market fit, or more, it found product market fit in the IDEO space. But now you have like the first algorithm, who is like a Dutch X algorithm. In a way, it also would fit to sell like big tokens. If you have a big pool of tokens, it would be usable to sell this also on chain. And it's a bit strange that now it's like a circle is closing. But in a way, it would make sense to make like a spin-off, and for us. But the funny thing about this, if you see it as a sale algorithm for like OTC deals, or like on-chain OTC deals, then it would be also nice to try this first, because it's in a way we can see how the auction mechanism is working in real time, and it's like, yeah, it's different, because then at least you have like a target price. Because if you look at IDOs, the price is like unknown, and if you use it for a token sale for a well-known token, then the price is like defined, and it's like a subset of to see how the mechanism is working. Yes.
Exactly. So this could be used even by the DXdao to do treasury management and move.
In a way, yes. Yeah. But you need,
and it's actually.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. It's actually like it's a really great thing for us. I don't expect that we will have like tons of IDOs constantly in the first 2-3 months. And with that, we could basically fill up the gaps between like having IDOs and in between we could actually do like treasury management as like an advertisement. I think Gnosis did that like by giving out money, by doing those bigger sales of ETH, for example, just to like attract people and get to let them get to know the product. And this is something we could do too. Just doing like treasury management.
You're talking about
with
Dutch X?
I think with Gnosis protocol, even they sold like a bunch of tokens to like, yeah, advertisement basically. And this is
Yes.
something, and it's nice for us because the end results for us are the same. We are like making treasury management and dog fooding ourselves with our own products, which is awesome.
Yeah, I also think we can make maybe a layer 2 version of it, because it's not so, it's like a one selling token, it's like a one-time event, and then yeah, it's like a test, it can be a test bed to do it on layer 2, because then it's more easy to participate. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. Many things too.
Totally. Yeah, and as you mentioned, Mesa, was really a front end for a DEX with the intent of this protocol to be a DEX, and then it kind of accidentally found a product market fit with IDOs. But with that, I think there were a whole host of different kind of surprise problems that people had along the way. So I think there's a great opportunity here for DXdao to build kind of a more reliable product that serves that need and appeals to the desire for front-running resistance and some of the things that these projects were seeking from Mesa. Yeah, cool. Anything else on Mesa before we move to Swapper? Very good. Zet, would you like to kick us off on Swapper?
Sure. For Swapper, we are still working on the governance UI. We are working on the farming UI, and we are working on the farming contracts. Today, me and Federico went through the creation page for creating a farm, and got some feedback, and I'm gonna redo some stuff, but it looks like we are soon ready to create the UI connected to the contract. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, good stuff. I also talked with Federico about the staking contracts, and they look great. A great job there, Federico. And it looks like those should be going into audit next week. So that's something exciting to look forward to. Cool. Anything else on Swapper? I guess this is maybe a good segue into. We can talk a little bit about the multi-call installation, which I think we've hit a couple of snags in I was kind of hoping to get that all prepared this week. We've hit a couple of snags, but it should be about ready. And what this is going to allow is actually connections to a few things that the DXdao controls. So a big one being the bonding curve. So it will allow DXdao to control the parameters that can be updated on the bonding curve, and this will include like adding the ability for DXdao to pause minting effectively. And then a couple, there will also be connections to existing ones that are currently spread across a few different schemes related to EMS. So, and that's nice in that it consolidates the schemes into the one multi-call scheme. And then the two other big new things are these two relayers that Nico built, one being the Gnosis protocol relayer. That's going to allow DXdao to do trades from the treasury with limit orders on Gnosis protocol. So, kind of like we were just speculating we could use the new Mesa to do, the current plan is to do that with Gnosis protocol v1. Do things like trade ETH into stable coins to secure some runway. And then the other relayer is a Swapper liquidity relayer, and that's going to allow DXdao to deposit liquidity from the treasury into Swapper. So kind of a 1-2 punch here. Trades can be made from the treasury into stable coins and other assets if DXdao decides to diversify, and then they can also be deposited into Swapper. So super excited about that. It's Nico's been doing a great job. A lot of moving parts there, so that's coming together, and I think should be ready soon. I don't know, Nico, if you wanted to say anything about that.
Yeah, we are the last steps. So we currently prepare the proposal
and we try to put everything together so everybody who's a bit more technical into the details can verify all of the stuff that's happening. As John mentioned, it's a lot of contracts that will be getting installed there in the background, and I think we are good to create the proposal later today.
Nico, can we deploy those two contracts, the two relayers at least on XDAI, so we can test it there and make sure that it's kind of like working?
Yes, they are actually already deployed, at least the Gnosis protocol relay. It's already deployed on XDAI. The only missing piece for deploying the swapper liquidity layer on XDAI is that we actually have a swapper version on XDAI to actually interact with it. But Gnosis protocol relay is already in XDAI.
Okay, so I guess the next step would be to actually try and do something like, I don't know, provide liquidity or trade.
Exactly, and I think that's something. I think the thought here was that this verification and testing on XDAI can basically happen in parallel with the multi-call proposal on mainnet, because unless it achieves absolute majority, the boosting time is like 2 weeks for the multi-call proposal. So, I think what we should be shooting for here is verification testing of the Gnosis protocol relayer on XDAI, and if that goes well, then the multi-call should be able to go ahead and be ready to use in 2 to 3 weeks. And if we do catch something on XDAI, for some reason that's a showstopper or whatever, it would be time to vote down the multi-call proposal on mainnet.
Hot testnet, XDAI.
Yeah, it's like an expensive testnet. Cool. Anything else? Maybe other things related to governance? Anything update there, Elon? Or
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Anything else on the governance side? Like we have this multi-call coming. Anything else that we should be updating?
I think that's mostly it.
On my side, on the DXdao app that was already deployed on Rinkeby, is barely working, and the plan is to have a call with Seth to start thinking about future designs of the app, make it more usable. We have a to-do list for the version 1.0, and yeah, excited about that because everything is like it's working. It's kind of working, and well, thanks to Sky, he has been testing it for the past weeks, and everything right now. My idea, my goal is to have everything like DXbot and DXtrust app deploys on Rinkeby and hosted on GitHub pages on the develop branch. So any changes that we do there, for example, if someone reports me an issue, we can all test it together on the community to make sure that the next version of the DXtrust app that is related to the bonding curve and the DXbot app that is going to be on Rinkeby and is going to help us sign and signal votes are going to be ready in the next month.
That's great. And I just remembered as well that the ERC20 guild should be going to be audited right after the staking contract. So probably starting in about a week. And I think that will probably take something like 8 days. So by the end of the month, hopefully we'll have audited ERC20 guild contracts as well. And I don't know where we are. I guess we have to do some coordination around the design and the front end for that, for DXtrust.
Yes.
As well.
Yes. About that, there are two design initiatives that we need to take. One is on the DXbot app that it needs to go through a design review, and the DXtrust app I make very few changes on showing a bit more information about the cure, and then we are going to have to include the guild feature, right? Which the good thing is that, for example, if we start thinking about the guild feature and we make the changes on the develop branch, we are going to be able to test it on Rinkeby, on hosted on GitHub pages, on any change that we do, and later when we merge the changes to master is going to make automatically the deploys to IPFS, and we will be able to all test the new process of testing and deploying and hashing, and hopefully it's going to make everything go works a bit more faster or smoother. But yeah, that's the to-do list.
Definitely. Yeah, always good that we're improving the development process there, and yes, we'll follow up on the design soon. Cool. I guess the only other thing I can think of on product, anybody else feel free to jump in, but we have been talking a bit about layer 2, and so that's something that is currently being explored. You know, there has already been the DAO deployment and Mesa deployments onto XDAI, and Omen is lined up soon, as has already been mentioned. That's a side chain, right? But it addresses scalability, and so we're also keeping an eye on some of the ongoing layer 2 efforts. Obviously, we are pretty close with Loopring, and we're also, you know, talking now with Off-Chain Labs, which works on Arbitrum, which is an optimistic roll-up solution, and have also touched base with Optimism, which is, you know, they're also an optimistic roll-up solution. So those guys are both, you know, launching, are already launched testnets and are talking about doing deployments this year. So this is just kind of something we're digging into now to prepare and position ourselves for.
Yeah, and just a plug, I have a bit more discussion on this during the product strategy call tomorrow, but I do think this is, you know, layer 2 is a huge secular trend that the space is going through, obviously kind of spurred on by really the high gas prices and of the last month or so. But I think it's something that, you know, DXdao has been thinking about and experimenting with for a long time. So I think we're in a good position here, not only because of the experience with Loopring and building out Rails and understanding a little bit about that, but everything we've been doing with XDAI has really, I think, you know, has kind of prepared us for understanding how like we can interact with the layer 2 world. So I think we're in a strong position to develop and kind of implement a strategy for the layer 2 landscape as it's kind of coming to fruition now. And yeah, I think it could be a really big opportunity for DXdao and really for the products, right? Because I think, you know, think of all the all the growth in DeFi in 2020, and you know, 2021 I assume will have additional growth, but I think it's already a crowded space on Ethereum in terms of competitors and different products going after that, and I think the L2 landscape could be a real opportunity for DXdao products to distinguish themselves. So I'm pretty excited what we can do with L2 there.
Totally, and so yeah, like Chris, if you're interested, join tomorrow for the product strategy call, same time as this call, same channel here. Cool. Anything else on the product side before we move to the biz dev call? Great. Nylon, do you want to recap what we did this week?
Yeah, sorry. I'm just driving.
Okay, no worries. If we can maybe try to cover it ourselves.
Yeah, if you can.
Actually, I'm drawing a blank right at the moment. It's kind of been a blur, but does somebody else remember what we were talking about?
I wish I had the notes in front of me. We had a couple speakers. If I should look at the note.
I did. So I just actually posted the notes from, there it is. So I think there was the agenda there. What was the first half of it was, I guess Venki and Nylon kind of talked a little bit about some OKRs, which I think are a really interesting idea that we've been talking about a lot, about how to provide some structure on products and business and that. So I think that should be exciting. We also touched on the L2 discussion as always. And I can't remember, there was one other thing that I remember we talked about.
Yeah, I guess that was the main thing, was this and what are OKRs again? I can never remember.
Objectives and key results.
Gotcha. So the idea is basically like setting goals at a high level for DXdao and how we could potentially do that, right? And I think,
And we, Venki and Elan are leading, but they've shared the Miro for OKR like drafts basically. And so individuals like squads and things can start to outline their goals and then the key objectives below those goals for the different squads and verticals across DXdao. And then the idea is to have a working group come together and really like outline and define what that OKR roadmap looks like. And then the plan would be to like revisit, like work on that and then revisit that on an ongoing and quarterly basis where you adjust that. So I've added some around Omen. There's like the overall goals. And so that draft of that Miro, I think is shared in the BizDev Keybase, and anyone can start to add their own objectives to it. And then we'll narrow it down as a community, I think, which is cool.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Sky.
Yeah. So just to add, thanks, Sky. I guess thanks, everyone. So yeah, Venki and I have been working on this. What we will likely do is have kind of like a sort of top-down version of 21 goals for DXdao, and then a bottom-up version, which is like how does Omen create basically goals and KPIs that are essentially a subset of DXdao, the DXdao goals. So we'll start with that, and hopefully we can revisit this in like in the end of the quarter, and then iterate on that as well.
Yeah, and I guess what this allows is in a decentralized collective, which is like a really fluid, working almost like a startup, people coming in from all different angles, lots of different verticals, lots of different products. For a newcomer, especially, unless you spend all day long following everything, you don't really know what the vision of DXdao is. And this OKR map should let someone come in or an investor from the outside look and see exactly what DXdao is moving towards. And if they have an issue or a DXD holder says, why are you going towards that goal, then that will be a more open and clear discussion. So right now that exists, but it's all like in thin air. This is a way to put it on a sheet that the whole community can see, which is really useful, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, guys. Anything else on the BizDev call? So the dev call, I think we covered most of the product stuff already. I think beyond the product stuff we covered, we did address, there's with the rise in ETH price and also the increase in the GUI amount needed for transactions, it's caused a fair amount of costs for proposals. And so even just for like routine worker proposals, we're looking at hundreds of dollars for people to basically collect their paycheck. So, I kind of brought up the point of how can this be optimized. Augusto was suggesting, we could add a new funding and voting power scheme which supports multiple recipient addresses, which I think is an interesting idea, although I have some concerns around, making sure the UI is good from a security perspective. And the other thing that we're doing too is we're actually interacting with BlockRocket, which is a dev shop, and potentially going to be hiring them to build a dedicated like payroll smart contract system, basically, so that it would basically handle handing out vesting payments or controlling the vesting DXD and paying that out, as well as paying out the DAI or ETH or whatever the base pay is for workers. And so, workers would still make proposals to the main DAO in order to get their authorization and their reputation, but that proposal itself would interact with this vesting contract and general payroll system, and then the worker would be able to go there to collect their payments, and they wouldn't have to worry about making 3 proposals to to DXdao and boosting them, etc., per worker period, and they wouldn't have to worry about deploying a new vesting contract every time, which that alone has gotten fairly expensive. Now I think we're looking north of $100 to deploy that on Ethereum these days. So yeah, just anything else on the dev call that I'm forgetting? If
There
not,
was
maybe,
the guy from Tenderly, I guess.
yeah, that was super cool. Yeah, Nico brought on one of the founders of Tenderly, which we've been using to do simulations for. Yeah, Nico, maybe you want to recap that? I kind of probably not the best.
Yeah, sure. So Bogdan from Tenderly came on the call. Like the background behind it is that we are already using Tenderly for some of the DXdao security efforts to try to understand proposals that are happening on Alchemy. So it's basically already integrated in the Keybase bot, which is the security channel on Keybase. And we are using it on Courtesy. So the license is usually a paid version, and we got it for free as of now, but we are planning to license it. And that's why Bogdan came on the call to speak about all of the details and figuring out how we get the license there. And I will post a DAO talk post there as well. Like, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Tenderly is a great product for simulating, and it helps us, get confidence that proposals will do what they are intended to do, that they'll work, and that they're secure. So very good stuff there. All right, Chris, do you want to take us to the governance?
Yeah, just to transition off of that. So I mean, I think there's a lot of interest on Tenderly and kind of trying to pay that, but there is some logistics we're gonna have to figure out of how to transact with them. So talked a little bit about that, and then yeah, actually had a pretty packed call. Started like most of the other calls this week seems to talk about rising gas prices and how they're affecting different things. And related to governance, this relates to the gas subsidy that we use for voting to compensate voters and creating proposals. So the discussion kind of landed on, I think there's the short, immediate term, the medium term, and the long term, right? So the short term is raising the gas subsidy from 75% to 90%, just to cover some of the cost. And this is, it does cost DXdao money, right? This is funds coming from the treasury, but it's really such an existential threat in terms of our ability to transact, pass proposals and really operate in governance. And then in the medium term, thinking about, I think as John mentioned, maybe there are some more efficient ways to actually distribute funds themselves. And so this may be through the multi-sig or through squads that we're talking about. And then the long-term plan that Augusto is working on is really how do we make gas costs almost zero for people to vote. And so that involves some type of roll-up component. So hopefully those will kind of give us some relief on that. Talked a bit about the multi-call scheme. And so one of the parameters for the multi-call scheme is this quiet vote ending period, which basically says within the last, I think, 2 days, if a vote switches from no to yes or yes to no, that extends the vote by, I think, 48 hours. Good discussions. I check out the video, but consensus seemed to be that we wanted to keep this going forward. The worker, and then Pulp had been working on a contributor guidelines that she presented again. And then for that, I think the one we're really focusing on now, and we have a nice guide for now, is the like onboarding, or I think it was called the worker proposal guide. Right? So this is if you're a new worker, how do you go through the process of like onboarding and sending your first proposal? I know lots of people, like, creating a proposal is actually a pretty anxiety inducing act, and we're still trying to standardize this, but starting we're I think forming consensus around having a 2-week trial period where there is a squad guide or squad leader that is guiding someone through that process. And then at the end of that 2-week period, they will submit like a 2-month proposal or 2-month scope of work working with the guide for that. And so that 2-week trial period will really be the time when we decide like up or down. And I think as Zet said, that's just as much for the worker as it is for the DAO. So we can have that ability to be able to determine if it's a fit or not. So in the process of standardizing that, but there's a link to the draft that Pulp's been working on in the notes. And then I think that was it. And then just a flag to posts that we're, I guess, in the pre-discussion phase, or maybe just thinking about now. But with the implementation of the multi-call scheme, that obviously extends the possibilities and capabilities of DXdao on chain. So there's 2 threads that I think are relevant to that. One is treasury thoughts and looking at treasury diversification. And then the second is a DXD buyback using ETH from the treasury to seed swapper liquidity pools. And so I think those are both important discussions that we need to have now as we figure out exactly how to implement and what to do on those.
And Paul, I think, was there something you wanted to add to this, to the topic of the buyback? I know there was some discussion on the
Yeah.
forum.
So something I kind of spent some time on today after just looking over the forum was kind of how maybe this is a very new thing for a DAO to undergo a buyback, which there are a lot of kind of questions that could come up, and it's just going to be a very public thing. So just to kind of quickly run down some of the general concerns large companies have doing a buyback, and based on our treasury size, we have to consider ourselves in that scope as a DAO, though we're not like a legal entity. There are elements to what we're doing that we should look at and how we can kind of handle them. Could be a very fun opportunity for us to be as transparent as possible in this process. And I think that's what we all want, and we're trying to do what's best for DXD holders as well. So with that said, just a quick kind of from a legal perspective of what more traditional stock buybacks look like and how we could then use that when we're kind of talking about a DXD buyback. There's just usual considerations that everyone's going to have. And the first thing is, like, I think Chris mentioned this in his proposal, was price manipulation. And what that basically means is a false pricing signal to the market. So, and that's any time where there's multiple purchases or sales from an issuer of a financial instrument, and somehow that might change the price. So we, of course, do not want to, as the issuer of a DXD, be engaged in price manipulation. There's many ways that we can combat that impression, like to the public and internally. My suggestion for us is that we work with some parameters from safe harbor guidelines from the SEC to kind of be clear that we're not manipulating the price in the manner in which we do our buyback if we actually decide to do that. The other concern, of course, is any type of fraud. We don't want to be accused of fraud, of course. The main, obvious type of fraud that you can think about is insider trading. We're a public DAO and we're very transparent, so there's not much. When people think of insider trading, the general definition is basically trading on material non-public information. So that non-public part is very key, of course. We're very transparent in the undergoings of the DAO, but it would be good for the DAO, I think, to kind of think about anything that's material, anything, usually this would have to do with like a merger or something like that, but anything that could affect the price of DXD that has to do with partnerships, new projects, anything like that. And before we do a buyback, do a DAO post about just all kind of like an update on any new developments that we're considering to do with the DAO. That could be anything from even like a eventual token issuance for Omen. I think that would be something we could do that would definitely make things as transparent as possible. Let's see. The other thing that we can consider is also a policy for our employees regarding blackout dates for purchasing of DXD and sales. Usually that's 2 days after an announcement of a buyback. That's usual industry standard. That's something we can or can't do, but it could be something good for. There's two, of course, individuals can be looked at for insider trading, but so can companies. So it's not just, it's good for a company to have a policy or an organization to have a policy against insider trading. Obviously, again, the whole point of this is to protect traders, any type of commercial purchaser of a stock or any type of financial instrument. Let's see. The fun part is we can basically do all of this now to kind of basically get ready for any type of buyback that we do, and then work with how we actually do the buyback. Main thing is there's all these conditions about timing, price, and the volume per day of purchase that we purchase back each day. And there's kind of specifics surrounding that as well. They're not crazy or anything like that, but the SEC considers anything that the company can do to not manipulate the price. Like, for example, we could look at what the independent sale price was for the purchase, and we wouldn't purchase any DXD higher than that price for that given day. We'd also only purchase about 25% of the average trading volume for the past 4 weeks for a given day. So there's all these factors that we can look at to where we ensure that we don't manipulate the price of DXD during the buyback. And I think that would set a good standard for DAOs to show transparency, as well as just make sure we're doing everything on the up and up.
Yeah, I completely get it. That's really great. Just one thing on that last point. There's also like the technical or like the proposal side of this, because proposals take 8 days to pass, and so if we're picking a price, how do we select the right price, or how do we reference those? And so this goes into the relayer that Nico has been building. But yeah, those are just a lot of things to consider, and I think just being open and discussing them and talking about it and posting in the forum, I think is great. So glad to hear the perspective.
Yeah, the idea is mostly like whether or not this is something that you all would consider doing as a DAO going forward with the buyback. This is what a company with a registered security has to do. And so it's just a matter of, I don't think it's a huge overhead for us. And I think it does set a good example for transparency. And I don't think we have really any major issues to do some of this stuff. What I can do is I've just been doing basic research on what's usually required for this kind of thing. And I think it would be enough for us just to do a basic, post on DAO Talk about the ongoings of the DAO, how much we intend to purchase, how much we'll purchase each day, and what kind of guidelines we're following. And I could write all that up, and we can kind of get feedback on, what level of transparency or compliance we want to go forward with.
Hope, I love the idea of being proactive about this, and what it actually reminds me of kind of what's happening though with FinCEN right now is like they've created some rules that it's literally impossible to fit this new form of technology into, and so even though we can be proactive, like it is impossible to, for example, have a blackout, as Martin points out in the chat. It's impossible to have a blackout period that can be enforceable. That's a standard rule that comes from the traditional finance system, and it is possible in that system. In this new system, if that's impossible, it's almost better to like write in our write-up that is, we acknowledge that would be good to do. It is impossible, so that is the reason we're not putting that or something. But just being super transparent, but not squeezing what a DAO and new age thing is into the old rules, if possible.
Yeah, when I was referring to, so usually when I'm referring to like a general blackout, sure. even with the an employee blackout, it's just within their internal rules. It's just a recommendation to employees not to engage in any sale or trade of the stock during a 2-day period. The idea is then to take the liability off of the employer in their buyback. So it's like, you can do what you want. I can't, stop you from doing something, but we'd rather not have you do that. So not like a full-on blackout, but the idea is, anything to, disincentivize practices that would somehow disadvantage a DXD holder or a trader who's buying DXD or selling.
Cool. So like best practices outlined. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, obviously I can't stop you from using your ETH address to buy DXD, but the idea is just saying, hey, we don't support that and we're not facilitating it or turning a blind eye to it.
Yeah. I mean, not me specifically when you say stop me. Right?
Oh, no. I meant more just like you as in, everybody. No one in particular, of course.
Yeah, I think these are all excellent points. And even though we may be in a bit of uncharted territory as like an internet native kind of organization without a specific jurisdiction, I think it makes total sense to kind of borrow some of these best practices from obviously the very mature industry and regulation environment that in the US. And I really appreciate the expertise that you're bringing here on this.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We talk about it, and then if something doesn't make sense, and especially from the tech side, we say, hey, that obviously, like for example, one of the rules are, and I didn't mention it, is you need to have one single broker a day. Okay, obviously we're not using an authorized broker to buy back, or, to purchase our stock. So they also have timing specifications. We don't have a time of day for the stock. Crypto's traded 24 hours a day. So there's just so many things we're not going to be able to do. But I think putting a good foot forward with this kind of stuff is just putting ourselves above reprieve. And I think we've all been kind of pushing that angle because that's what we care about here. So it's good.
Yeah, and I think we should, in thinking about this even strategically, I think transparency is can be such a like advantage and a tool that we have just by being transparent and open about everything, right? Because it kind of like insulates, just all of these potential kind of downfalls. So I think it's in the same way like decentralization can be something that is advantageous to DXdao from a strategic standpoint. I think like the transparency here is just really important, even just from a kind of strategic standpoint.
One other interesting idea, and maybe this is kind of related to like when a company tenders shares directly from shareholders, like with a DAO is just a community of people. Instead of like the DAO buying back like DXD, what if we could do some new method that doesn't exist in the real world, where like you actually leverage the entire DAO and DXD community to accomplish the goal, which reminds me a little bit about like the member balancer idea, where it's like anyone who holds DXD in the world can deliver DXD to the DAO, like by just sending it to the DAO, and then could make a proposal for a certain amount of ETH depending on a certain discount or parameter, and they have to trust the DAO, but that incentive is enough that they are taking that trust. It's at a certain price, like the people that deliver the DXD will know they will get that price for the DXD they deliver. It's like it's a new idea that cannot be done in the real world, but can only be done with a decentralized global collective. So maybe there's something that we could think about there. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it effectively sounds like that would be a buyback, right? But maybe with some novel mechanics, or kind of an interesting way to approach it.
Yeah, like leveraging the actual community, which is the DAO and the DXD holders, rather than just like the DAO buying it from the market. Like you actually leverage your community somehow.
It's like versus going to an exchange and placing a limit order or a market or whatever the choice would be. Like you're kind of relying on this like kind of peer to DAO like redemptions, right? Essentially.
It could be a new paradigm that has never happened before, that only can happen with DAOs.
I mean, in some essence, like the bonding curve itself is this mechanic at at a certain price based on the buyback reserve.
Yeah, I actually been meaning to ask about this. How much, like, if we sent ETH to the reserve, like that could potentially, like, I guess, raise the sell price in the curve. And I just wonder how much. Like, I know there's 2,500 ETH there, so I guess it would take a lot of ETH to raise the price of the sell curve. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's another way that.
Well, like the way I was looking at it, so there's this safe harbor provision that the SEC puts out that basically says we kind of assume if you don't have to follow these criteria, but if you follow these criteria, you're basically not. We assume you're not engaging in price manipulation. It's just a way to say, hey, best practices, you don't have to follow them because not every shoe fits every person, but take a look at it. So one thing that they talk about is look at the past. For example, trade volume per day, past 4 weeks of average trade volume on your principal market. They have a definition for principal market. We can tender these rules to work within our interesting, unique parameters. And principal market would have to do with what market do you have the highest amount of DXD trading volume on per day. So who knows what that is? Maybe it's Uniswap. I'm not sure. But then we look at what the average daily trade volume is, and they said you can do 25% basically of the trade volume per day. And you could, through a smart, I was thinking, maybe I'm wrong, but through a smart contract, you can, use that number to kind of put that amount of ETH based off of the most recent market price through the contract. And that's how much you're trading for that day. That's, one way to do it. I mean, that's like, it can get more complicated than that, but we could, try to, just do our best to kind of work within a way where we're not manipulating the price by over flooding the market with too much buyback. Yeah, I'm reading the comments right now. That's why I was laughing. Yeah, are you referring to Swapper, Matt?
But I think just this is also something where this is not unfortunate or fortunately, like DXdao will like move slow in this because it needs to like figure these things out because we want to be transparent. We want to make sure we're not manipulating. But then like once we figure this out, it sets a standard and it kind of just opens up the possibilities and capabilities, and I think also sets an example to others in this space. So I think this is something we should be exploring, and then it may take some time to figure it all out.
It's a huge information dump, and I know I'm talking about it, and it's like a lot of specifics. So I feel like the best way to do it is just to I could write something up, but I just figured, we should start thinking about this if the buyback is happening and how we can maybe at least, I think as a general proposal, at least think about start thinking about big material things that are going on with the DAO that we want to put in a post to say, hey, everybody, this is what's going on with the DAO. This is coming up. And we can even, as a part of our buyback, we just want everyone to know this is what's going on. That kind of thing could just even be a nice starting point to think about for the future.
Hey guys, I just wanted to jump in real quick. I'm just curious, like if the SEC can tell us what to do, are we decentralized enough? I'll just leave it at that. I mean, is that our goal? Or?
Well, I mean, I would say I don't want to manipulate the price of DXD because I think that's a bad, immoral thing to do.
Yeah,
and
I don't either.
So I'm like looking at like what are the best practices to prevent price manipulation, and what are the best practices to like divulge, like be transparent about like the actions that we're taking. And I think, as John said, you're kind of like looking at, well, what other systems have like kind of maybe provided some best practices, and what can we learn from those? Not so much that we're like, abiding by those, but it's more of like there's a model for how to go about this, and so I think we can learn from that.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
the idea. There's no way that we're trying to comply or disclosing anything to the SEC. That's not the point. It's about best practices and how to be the most transparent and fair to DXD holders. That's the goal.
Do we know? So I believe Gnosis has done some buybacks, right? But do we know some crypto ecosystem projects that have done this and what practices they've used? Because that would be more interesting, or that would be also interesting in addition to like the traditional financial market. But I'm not that aware of any. We could try to find out from the community if there are others. I think there are some, but I'm not aware of them.
I mean, I think a lot of projects market make on their token.
Yeah.
Like that's very, very common. And I think like that's not that that's a form of price manipulation or buyback, but like I think a lot of approaches do it. And I would be interested to know what Gnosis did actually.
Yeah, maybe we can ask them and as a starting point just for some guidance.
What's the Swiss equivalent of the SEC, Martin? The SSC?
I don't know, but it's the
NDC,
enforcement of the tax. So it's about tax. It's about tax.
Not tax.
The SEC goes after people in all countries, by the way, so they're kind of loose with their jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're a US citizen, then you have a problem also worldwide. Yeah, that's true. But not if
even
you're
if you're not a US citizen. That's my whole point. They kind of act like God, but
you know, a relative
that's
of
another
mine,
conversation.
she had like a US citizenship because she was born in the US, but she gave it back because it was so. Yeah, she had to do taxes in both places, and it's a pain. So she gave back the US citizenship.
You don't have to tell us that it's a pain.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, but the way I like to
It's
think
not,
about
Switzerland, it's very,
just
you don't pay your taxes as long as it's not a fraud. You're not frauding anyone like actively, then it's not even going to court. You just get a fine. That's all.
To seize comment, Maker inherently buys back MKR. So in the crypto space, there are systems that are built to buy back tokens, right? And actually, the bonding curve, which is the DXD token, that system is meant to buy back DXD. So the question is that buyback mechanism DXdao, the entity that's doing it, or is it the actual token that's doing it to itself, or is it the bonding curve? And then how does that relate to DXdao, who happens to be a holder of some DXD, buying some DXD? Like the issuer is actually the bonding curve. DXD, the DXdao just holds DXD just like other DXD holders. So actually the curve, the code, and this is why this is like the FinCEN last couple weeks, the code is what's doing everything. I wouldn't even say DXdao is the issuer of DXD.
I think that's a really interesting perspective and could be looked at more. But I think with us deciding to put a proposal through Alchemy to buy back DXD, this is a separate fact pattern than the initial issuance. And I think that the DeFi, everything about putting up a smart contract onto Ethereum makes it a whole different question of like what's considered like, is it the code or is it like individuals? It's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, what if a big crypto fund put out into the market that they wanted to acquire 10,000 DXD? Like, well, they might not do it publicly, but they might, like, any player in the space could like say, I'm willing to buy DXD from anyone that's willing to sell it at this ETH price or something. Like, that would be, I'm saying that would be similar to what DXdao is doing. It's just like, it's not our own token. It's like the curve the token belongs to the curve. So how would a fund be subject to these rules, just like DXdao is subject to these rules, I guess?
Yeah, I think that's like the big struggle right now with the DeFi community and trying to figure out how best to manage their financial products and do what's best for the commercial participants in the market that they're working in. And it's definitely an ongoing, it's developing. Like, we're literally in such a innovative and front end industry that the legal side of things, especially with tech, takes so long to catch up to. So there's no clear answer yet, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, we have somebody, the SEC as their screen name now. That'd be great. We could ask them some questions. No, I think this is really great, great stuff, Pulp, and looking forward to the post and follow up on it.
Yeah, fun talk, everyone. But I think it's good to